Hello, welcome to SAT Double Take, where we solve math problems on the SAT at least two different ways, and you pick which is ever best for you. This is from College Board Exam 1, the calculator section, and ultimately what we're going to be doing is either isolating the variable in this case to solve for it, or we're going to plug in our answer choices here to see which one is going to give us the right answer. So let's get into it. Katerina is a botanist studying the production of pears by two types of pear trees. She noticed that type A trees produced 20% more pears than type B trees did. Based on Katerina's observation, if type A trees produced 144 pears, how many pears did type B pears? I'm sorry, how many pears did the type B trees produce? All right, so I can see that A is representing B with a 20% bump. So what that means is if I wanted A to be exactly to be equal to B, I can multiply B times 1, and it's the same thing because 1 times B is just B. That means the same, but it's not the same in our question. They want it to be increased by 20%. And if you ever want to do that, it's the same way you would do sales tax or something like that. Let's say sales tax was 20%. You would multiply the price by 1.20 because what that 1 accounts for is the original value, and that 0.2 is representing like 20% added. All right. And then we later on read that A produced 144 pairs. They want to know if that's the situation, what does B equal in this case? Well, now we originally created our equation, and now we have a value to plug in for A. Let's just rewrite it and isolate. 144 equals B times 1.20. The way I would get B by itself is dividing both sides by 1.20. 1.20 or 1.2, that 0 isn't necessarily needed, and especially on a test day it wouldn't hurt. 144 divided by 1.20 is 120. So what they're telling me is that B must equal 120 pairs, which makes sense because it is less than the 144 number, and it's also an answer choice. So let's think about plugging it in. You know, creating equations like this sometimes can be difficult on test day, especially your first time around. And if you ever feel like you're stuck on something like this, but you understand practically what they're saying, you can kind of use the answer choices against it. So what do I mean by that? Well, we know that A is producing 20% more than B. And if you can't write this equation, well, we still know that there's 144 pairs. And that B, if you had whatever number we say it's potentially is B, it has to, one, be less. First thing we know is that it has to be less than 144 because we're seeing that A produces more than B. But also, if we take 20% of B and add it back into B, right? If we multiply this number by 0.20 and then just add it back in to that original number, or let me fix that arrow to whatever this potential number is, well then that's going to tell us if it gets back to 144 that it's the answer. So let me do it in real time and we'll see if that makes a little bit more sense. So let's say that we think it's A, right? We think B, paired tree B is producing 115. Well, what's 20% of 115? Well, we still multiply by 0.2, or 0.20. And what's 20% of 115? 0.2 times 115 is 23. Well, 115 plus 23, and you can see this takes a little bit longer, especially if we don't get to the answer right away. But if you know that you can get this, it's worth your time if you are willing to sacrifice time on the other types of questions. It's 138. If the original 115 plus the 20% that we expect A to have brings us still only to 138, we need 144. We need this number to be 144, so it's not A. And now we're down to just two choices. If you plug in B, you would see that 120 times 0.2 is going to give you 24 pairs. Add it back in, you end up with the right answer. If you were to plug in C, you would see that's wrong, and you're still now left with B as your only choice, leaving it as the correct answer. So whichever makes the best sense to you, but it's always worth trying to learn both methods because on test day, however they ask you, you want to be ready for the quickest way possible. Best of luck.